Good evening. Welcome to a special edition of the International Grapevine. This is your host, Wallingford Lee. Tonight on the Grapevine, we're going to put the spotlight on Graham International Consulting, which is run by Dr. Corinne Graham, who happened to be a special person that we had heard great things about. She runs on our own business. She's the president of our own company. So we want to take the opportunity to talk to her a little bit about small business. As each one of you would know, that small business is the backbone of America when it comes to corporation. And she's an expert in terms of consulting, working with them, and she brings a lot to the table. So we want to take this opportunity to welcome her to the Grapevine and to spend the next 25, 26 minutes talking about our background and talking about our company. Doctor, welcome to our program.
Thanks for the invitation. I look forward to chatting with you.
For me, obviously, it's an honor. We heard so many wonderful things about you, and we wanted to take the opportunity for our viewing audience. I'm sure quite a few of them know you, but it's good that we will have the opportunity just to know a little bit about you. Can you tell us a little bit about your background before we get started?
Oh boy, that's like one of those questions, no matter how many times you're asked, it's like, oh boy, do I have to talk about myself? I don't particularly care for that. And in addition, as how much do you share that doesn't become overwhelming, that folks are like,
all right, we'll just share maybe about 3 minutes, just the basic, just stick with
that's
basic.
fine. So I think essentially what I would like to share with folks is one of the reason why I'm in the field that I am is based on transferable skills that I've gained or built up throughout my tenure through corporate world. I had the opportunity to, be in multiple roles, being in multiple different types of industries, and having the ability to pivot, which is one of those words that is being used very frequently today with the pandemic or different things that are going on. And similar to you in a sense of, being in banking, you get to touch or work with a lot of different individuals in that. So ultimately, my role started from, I think, when I started my journey, starting out as a young senior manager, then having to start over. So that meant starting at a lower paying job and just changing, whether it was customer service, then working in different types of operations and working, becoming a management accountant, working with C-suite, and then myself becoming a C-suite, right? Working HR, marketing, that sort of stuff. And that allowed me really to be able to navigate certain things because I really have a true operation background in many different industry. And to add to that, obviously I did go to school, so I'm an academic in that sense as well.
Very interesting. But what made you decide at the last moment to take the risk factor and set up your own consulting company? What made you decide to change career, so to speak?
So the story is really one where I think in my much younger years, when I was in, my early or mid-teens, I had made the decision that I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wouldn't say that I made the decision. It wasn't appealing. I had a lot of individuals who were C-suites and entrepreneur themselves. I really was just, in awe of just being one of those corporate suits, for the want of a better term. And that was my fascination. And I think at some point you get burnt out. And I think for me, when going through my doctoral study, and not just my doctoral study, in my early undergrad programs, realizing that people were talking about opportunities not being there, and all different sorts of, I want to say excuses, but they're not excuses, obviously, within the reason or what they knew. And looking at that and really just kind of forecasting things, right? So that comes into the financial forecasting, the economic forecasting, whatever, the overall, to just project and see what opportunities were there, or what was possible or coming along the line. So I didn't see the reason why so many people were saying, well, they couldn't find job opportunities when companies were looking for individuals, right? And then just myself just being, I guess I got a little burnt out maybe of how far you could really go. And having the talk really was when was with one of my mentors or my committee members through my doctoral study, when we were talking about how the economy was going and how people were doing certain things. And one of the points that came out of that conversation with this committee member was, he was like, but Karine, don't you know the job of PhD is to create economic empowerment? And the fact is, I knew that. So it wasn't something new, but in a discussion where we're talking about all the issues and how they could be solved and so on, it was that aha moment. It's like, okay, well, I know a lot of things. It's a risk that I needed to take. And I had to get into that mindset to say, okay, I can do this. And how am I going to go about doing it? So I knew all the things that I needed to do because I had that fundamental or that foundation of running a business, knowing how it works, small, mid-size, large, research aspects. So I was able to leverage that for what I wanted to do. When I tested, so I piloted my business before I started it. And one of my colleagues had mentioned the firm reminded them of back in the 70s when the McKinseys and so on started. So that was a good positive feedback. They didn't have to say this. And when I started to do the networking, others were saying the same thing, like these top elite management consulting firms, like they would just, even people who worked for them thought that. And I thought that was really very interesting without me having to say that's where they thought my experience or expertise came from. So those are the things that kind of allowed me to really push. I was prepared for failure because I knew it was an option, and I did fail. I tried everything we did. You're always pivoting, even with a large organization and mid-size. You fail, you pick up the pieces, and you pivot, and you move on to the next.
One of the ideal things, obviously, is the multi skills that you brought to the table. That obviously helped you to go in either direction that you wanted, and it's a feeling that you have as working. Like I said, I have a banking background, and for a while I thought about coming out of it until I got into the commercial side of it. I found it more interesting, more productive, more exciting than working through the branches and you're talking to people every day. On the commercial side, you have so much involvement, you deal with so much more. Same thing with you. You knew you had the skills to do so much more. So you taught somewhere or another about the idea of becoming a consultant, and you put it out to pass you, and you did it. Were you scared at the beginning?
No, that's why I said to you, like, for me, I think one of the things I always talk about, being young, is the ability to embrace change a little bit more. But I already knew how to embrace change. I didn't stay in my job, and not because I wanted to move on, but I realized when saturation point occurred, you're not going to grow, and you have to move to the next. So once something is done, I'm not sticking around for what's next, right? You move on to the next big thing, and so on. And I was excited by the opportunities, really not so much so to make money, but to really make a difference, because that was what was needed. Folks were asking, how do you do this? How, they wanted to be happy. And I think even within this pandemic, we see that, a lot of the things folks didn't want or didn't make time for, they were forced to come head to head with that and realize that there were more important things. The job goes on, or it's not, or whatever else it is, and you have to deal with those things. So for me, I think I always had that bit about wanting to help others to succeed, because I feel happy and I'm excited by other success. It's like I'm in, it's like seeing stars, or like a kid in a candy store. to me, that was what was important. So I knew what I was going to do. And as I said earlier, part of what my thinking process, my thought process was when I was going to leave was, guess what? You can fail at this. You will fail at this because probability and the area is saturated and how you're going to differentiate yourself. So I was prepared for it, and I had lots of contingencies, and those contingency didn't work out either. So when I failed and lost pretty much almost everything, I still had to keep going. It just didn't, you just started or you pivoted to something else that was probably more lucrative or opportunities. You just kept going. So for me, failing is not a bad thing. It kind of sucks a little bit, but it's a great thing because it prepares you. And I think you have to build that mindset. It has to be there. So I knew going in what were my chances of, and I had to define success. I mean, for me, I always say success is relative. Your success is not my success. So if my success is that, think about the story of It's a Wonderful Life. It's for me to be able to, be happy. I have health. I can afford where I'm living. I have, whatever it is that I need that I'm okay with, but that making others become their best selves, that for me is where my point was. If I could help someone else or a couple of someone else, I'm happy. I can't put a price on that tag at all.
One of the key components in your background tells you that one of the reasons why you made it is that you were determined and you were strong. You were not afraid of failure. You knew that if that came about, you will still blast through that door. You were not afraid. That makes a world of a difference when you engage into whatever you decide is going to be your brand going forward. If you are a coward or you have a weak determination, there are going to be times when you fall and you get up and you fall and you get up, but you were not afraid, and that made a world of a difference, obviously. And that's a very good thing. It shows strength, determination, focus, and know where you want to go and when you want to get there. And that's a big plus for you. No, it really is. I'm really serious. That's excellent.
Well,
That's excellent.
part of it is having, I was fortunate the way I was raised. My mother ensured that I was around individuals who were more mature than me. So when I was, 15 and 14 and 16, I had people who were 30, 60 and 70, right? So what I was learning or picking up, there were bad influences as well. But in terms of like how they did things, those things kind of became part of my root system, right? And so therefore I was learning as I was going along. I also I just believed in myself, and I knew I didn't know everything because I had enough failures growing up to be prepared for that. And I always, the lessons even going through school, learning to be comfortable with who I was and not to be, I'm not Wallingford and I'm not Juan, right? Or Julio, I think it is.
Sure. Yeah. No, that's understandable. All right. One of the key components that we want to talk a little bit about the successful of your business, which is a very successful business, of course, and one that you built from the ground up. And that's a big plus and a lot of kudos to you. We want to talk a little bit about small business. As a consultant, I'm quite sure you come through a lot of diverse ideas with people who want to start their own business, who wants to move on to bigger and better things. They have a dream. Sometimes they don't know how to put it together. How difficult it is for people who starting up a business. What advice do you give them? Of course, it depends on the type of business that they want to get into. Because as a banker, one of the things I'm going to learn the hard way. One time, a guy came into me for a loan because he wanted to put up a bakery, and I sat there with him for about 15 minutes. I said to him, "Have you ever worked in a bakery?" He says, "No." So I said, "But how are you going to put it out?" He says, "Well, I like that." But I said, "You never worked in it. You're in your 30s. Do you have a business plan?" He says, "No." What's that? You know what I'm saying? So I want to talk a little bit about small business because it gives the emphasis for any young people seeing out there or young women who want to start a business. I want to talk about the pros, the cons, and how to go about it, and eventually how do you come into the picture. But we'll wait for that down the road. So I just kind of want to have a feeling for ideas to start a small business. How do you view that?
So I think on both points that you're making, I agree with them. So I will agree. So I'm going to take I guess, an opposition view in terms of you're the banker, so you're looking from it from another perspective. I think if you
Absolutely.
have a dream or a vision, you need to go for it. The other pieces, as I was saying, is there's certain things that you need to learn. So there are ways that you can go about learning that. Going to the other bit where what I did, because I like to be somewhat a little bit organized. It doesn't mean that I'm not spontaneous. I don't like chaos. So I would strongly recommend everyone just get a marketing plan together. A business plan is more for you, Wallingford, when they're coming to you for the money, right? Because then the financials are there. That's the only difference between the marketing and the business plan. But what
Agreed.
a marketing plan essentially does, it gives you all the things. What are the mission and the vision of the organization, right? What are you looking to do? Who are your customers? What are the potential revenue streams that you have? And you should drill that down to where even if it's say it's, okay, they're going to bake. You need peanut and how to grow the peanuts, right? You really have to look at where that is. And I think the marketing plan sets them up for that, because now they understand budgeting. What are the things that go into it? How are they going to cost something? Who are their partners? Who are competitors? And a lot of these information, if they want to go out, I always recommend. I'm a We NYC mentor, so that women entrepreneur for New York City through the small business, the SBS, Small Business Services. And they offer tremendous amount of help to help women start up or people in generally in business. And then you have the SBAs, the Small Business Association, the SBDC, the Small Business Development Corp. There are tons of skilled individuals here who can help them to take it to the next level. We sometimes partner with the Brooklyn Public Library, which I know have tremendous amount of resources. And I mention these places because depending on where, if you're in the New York area or the the city,
Tri-state.
yeah, you know where to go and how to access things. But the resources are out there to help. I think fundamentally you must really want to succeed. That I think you have to agree on. You can't come at it like it's a thought. You must make that commitment to yourself to say, look, I'm going to try it. And if I want to play it safe, then go the route, develop the marketing plan, figure out, pilot what you're doing to see who wants it, whether they're willing to pay for it. And if that doesn't work, you tweak it, right? This is commercialization kind of ultimately. It doesn't change. Everything you're going to do, a thought, whether it's a service or a product, you have to learn how to commercialize that, right? So you get to take it to the market.
I agree with you 100%. We are here on International Grapevine, having the pleasure and the opportunity to talk to Dr. Corinne Graham, who is a consultant, and we're sharing some ideas with her. We'll be right back on International Grapevine as we continue moving forward, talking about small business and the various opportunities of startup, how to go about it, what to do, and where they can get help. We'll be right back on the Grapevine. And we're back here in International Grapevine, of course, moving forward, as most of our programs are somewhat educational. And this one I would consider it educational since we're talking about small business, again, which I mentioned is the backbone of America. And there's so much opportunities out there as long as you have a plan, an idea, and if you seek the right help, who can help you to put it together and where to go to get help. And on our program tonight, we have someone that's not only a mentor, but an excellent consultant person who have worked with various type of business. And she would be a unique person if you're not sure where you want to go and how you want to get going in the business world. Again, and that's the great thing about America. You have opportunities, and up to you to move forward with your idea and your dream, especially you can put it together. Dr. Graham, again, I like the last thing that we were talking about a little bit when you mentioned several areas. You mentioned the Small Business Administration. This is an excellent place to go, and sometimes they help you put your ideas together. I think you mentioned another place in Manhattan, which escapes me right now, but there are opportunities out there. Um, if if someone comes to you and they're pretty much prepared and they want to talk to you about how important profitability is, how important is cash flow and stuff like that. Even though they're talking about that, what is the first step that you talk to them about in getting their act together and going forward?
So would that be in terms of starting a business?
So you're starting a business.
So one of the things is I right off the bat, I recommend to individuals, because first thing folks, when they either know of me or are familiar or hear, they're going to say, oh, I know you're going to be too pricey for me to afford that. And
Comes with
the
a job.
point is, you know what? Guess what? They're going to pay people, the shark tankers of the world and so on, a fortune, and they still don't get what they need to and still have to spend funds. So I like to direct, I'll have a quick discussion, a couple minutes with anyone to kind of like flush out some of their ideas or where they could go with things that you'd normally charge for. And then I would recommend SCORES, the SBAs, the SBDC, the SBS. Why? They have individuals who are paid to help them, to guide them through that process, right? So I can only do but so much for them. So most importantly is just really telling them, and I think being their cheerleaders. If someone is interested, they're truly interested in starting their business, you have to be their cheerleader, because as you mentioned, you were asking earlier, that risk can be traumatic, right? All the money that you have, whomever it is that you have investing funds in, and now you have to be responsible or accountable for all of this. And it's a choice you have to make, family probably riding on it, your entire livelihood. So I think cheering them on and just brainstorming with them what that looks like, and then really recommending for them to go the next step. There are very few small businesses that's willing to pay for certain things. And I have, a couple. So most of what I do is I will work on contracts, because I'm an MWBE, a minority business enterprise by the New York State. So I'm both, woman and a minority business. So I will go after those sorts of work, which helps you to work with a lot of different companies and helps to build your portfolio. The other kind of things that I do is a personal and professional development, which takes on a different hat. And I run seminars or workshops. I can do it individually, or I can go into companies, which, I can help them in that because of the operational aspect. And then if you have small businesses who are really willing to spend the money to work with someone to get their business to streamline operations so that they can grow, then, we take the next step.
So let's talk a little bit about development, which I think it's very important, because development has various different hats. You have a startup company, sometime, and talk to them about development. You might have a company that's already startup, but are not generating the proper amount of revenue that they should be generating for a company who's around for 3 years. Maybe they're not losing money, but they're not even breaking even. They had a little loss. So when we talk about development and stuff like that, do you come into a picture like that, or in some cases like that, in terms of helping them how to develop and where to go? And before you answer that, my second question would be to you. I'm that type of guy. How important technology is in small business?
So I was going to just say that right there. Small businesses have the opportunity to be nimble, embrace technology from the offset. That's what allows you to streamline your processes and so that you can be effective, so that the mid-size or the larger companies can work with you, because there are certain things that are compliant and you want to run as lean as possible. You want to get your business in order. So you ought to embrace it. When the larger companies actually get involved with small businesses, right? Like they acquire them, or even think about technologies after it's kind of made its way through the small business, right? As you mentioned too, small business is the bread, like bread and butter of all economies, right? It makes up 90% of the people that is hired and get paid. So I would say technology is their friend. You need to embrace it all the way. It might be a little bit pickle, and this is where once you're established, or even if not, build a team, other small businesses that you can barter services together. So, someone might be good at marketing, and therefore you have something else that they need, and you can help to build your brands equally. It could be photography, where you need pictures, and the photographer may need products so that they can use it, so they can also put their, themselves, their products out there, meaning, their studios, and work with other individuals. So technology is their friend. They should really, really embrace it. They don't need to use every one of them, right? Just find the one that works, or that is close to what it is. And always think about whatever you're looking at coming from an operation standpoint, something that is not necessarily too new, but something that is seamless. So when you get to the next level of your growth, it's easy to just, to make that transition a little smoother. Or if another company is going to buy or take things over, you want to make that process as attractive as possible. And you want to be able to grow. You don't want to be stuck, and then you have to be moving an entire database, which means you have to expend more money for labor or for the technology itself for you to be able to take it to the next level. So technology is our friend. Whether or not we like it, it's a part of the DNA of business. It just is.
I couldn't agree with you more. One question that I have in my mind and stays in my mind: do you build websites for a small business company or any type of company if needed?
So I don't build website, but I do have, depending on the work that I'm doing, it might be part of what you would call statement of work. And then if I need to build a team, then I'll hire conditional hires. One of my philosophies is not to hire too many full-timers, and I'll tell you why. I've been in corporate world where, and this is not a negative thing against anyone who's out there working, and everybody works hard, but I want people to be on top of their game, because the projects that I'm working on, they need to have that level of expertise, and you want to always make your client look their best. So if I have individuals who are committed to continually learning or continuously learning, then they'll be on team. Some roles you'll have full-time, and that just makes it easier because you have certain things that doesn't make any sense to outsource or to have in a virtual capacity. But part of my company, I think, which is important for you, also for me to share with others, is that I'm one of those companies that are what you'd call virtual. So this virtual world isn't new to me. I don't always have to be in the client's office, or I'm usually in the client's office, or depending on what it is. So, sometimes Starbucks is my office. If I can't get, I have a rental for co-share space. But if it's a little bit too far and I only have half an hour before I get to another meeting, and I need to be on calls, or I need to respond to, workers on a project, I need to be nimble, right? I need to be flexible. I need to be, so this isn't new for a lot of entrepreneurs at all, right? This is a world that we live in.
You got to be able to juggle things and go forward. Okay. One of the things that I want to talk a little bit about is women owning their business. I think it's something very, very important, because women are the mother of civilization, and they wear a lot of hats. And sometimes we men don't give them the credit that they truly deserve. How have you seen small business with women? Is it that growth a lot in Long Island or in New York City, with the young women owning their business in today's world?
Yeah, that's normal. It's a trend that has been for some time now that women are owning their own business. And one of it is the frustration of, maybe not making enough money and not being happy, or in terms of some of the things in terms of their personal, space that they need to have. So one of the main difference, I think, between women business and the male business owners is in terms of the amount of revenue that they generate and typically the type of business that they go in. So they usually have less margins and they're not necessarily great negotiators in terms of their price. Just, you talk about emotional intelligence and so on. That's a whole nother topic. We tend to want to work a little bit more instead of being a little bit more assertive. I think we could always learn to be, like get a little bit of those financial or sales kind of training, or even attorneys, how they negotiate to know this is what it is that and know that this is what it's worth so that you can work, because it's important. But women-owned businesses, it's growing. And one of the things that I will share in terms of a report that I did, it should have been published in October, but it will be, I believe, December. I'm not at liberty to share what it is, but once a report it comes, I'll share it with you, you can share it. But one of the novelty, or one of the things, the terms that they're talking about is sidepreneur. So a lot of women may have their regular jobs, and what they have is another job along with that, or type of, where we are today allows for that to happen, right? And it allows for them to create that balance. So women are doing very well. And that's one of the reasons when I mentioned the WeNYC program, that was part of their goal. And they did a program, they did a research, I guess, in partnership with Amex, American Express, which showed some data about, women, especially minority women or women of color, that they were starting businesses and they were successful. And they just oftentimes need to scale. And so it is very important. Women are doing a lot, even in terms of education. And I think there are plenty of opportunities to start businesses, but I think there needs to be more opportunities or resources for them to scale, or to know if that business is scalable. One last thought on that, I think, not thought or opinion I have on that, or what I know is oftentimes is we have to determine, where do you want to grow? Do you want to be a Microsoft or Toyota? Or do you want to be a company that once, you get to retirement, you don't really want to continue anymore, you don't want to hand off generationally, right? I think those are decisions we have to make. And not everyone, honestly, wants to go that far. Some of, I would say a few would want to, right? If you have to think about that, do you want to be a $5,000 billion company? Remember, as I said, success is relative. Where do you want to go with your business? And I think we have to determine that. I think more individuals are wanting to go where they have that succession plan, so the business continue to pass, a handoff to the next generation.
Well, it brings me to a question I wanted to ask you, but you kind of jumped into it a little bit. I wanted to talk about minority business with Black women, how important that is in today's environment in terms of them coming forward and putting out their brand out there in business. And are they successful? Are they getting opportunities in the market?
It's very critical for women of color, Black women, to start their own businesses. And one of the reasons is because we're usually not paid the same as our counterparts, right? We're not given the same in terms of workload. I've experienced it. I've been on this end of payroll and accounting where I've also seen it, and I can't say anything about that, right? So it is something where they're doing it. They are successful. There are many Black-owned businesses that are doing very, very well. And I think part of that is because they also own their brand and they know what it is that they're offering and how to market it. I think once they take the step to make that decision to start it, then they have to take other steps where it's really getting a solid marketing plan together, a business plan together, and really revisiting it and understanding that the setbacks are there. I think you partner. I read and have colleagues who and clients who have gone to pitch to get money, and it takes 100 times a couple of years before you finally get it. But you have to know what it is that you're doing, what it is you're offering, and understand what the setbacks are for you. I think once you embrace that, right? I'm a believer of making your weaknesses your strength. I'm not a good swimmer. I'm claustrophobic, but I can swim, right? I made sure that I learned how to and whatever. So therefore, should something happen, I can navigate regardless of being afraid or so on. I like motorbikes and I keep trying to ride it, but for some strange reason, I'm stuck at a certain point, but I can ride one, right? To a certain extent, I can ride a couple of them. And that's where you want to always embrace your weaknesses should always be your strength. There should never be any opportunity for you never to learn. And I think that's one of where I think.
And to overcome your fears.
Yeah, I think that's where it is, because sometimes I think we think as women that we're not enough, right? And then society or individuals around us give us that false sense of, well, you should go back to work. What's the sense of doing this and so on, right? Or that you're never enough. When I go in and I'm doing workshop or job fairs or session with even students, whether it's middle school, high school, or college level, the question comes, and they ask all the time, why, has someone ever said this to you? How did you deal with it? And how did you feel about it? I've had all of those things come at me. And that part of it is that, building your self-confidence, your resilience to know that you have what you be confident in what you need, you have, and just build that, like keep learning how to be your best self all the time.
Build it and have confidence in yourself and build your brand. Mm-hmm. Well, Dr. Graham, I want to take the opportunity on behalf of the family of the Grapevine to say to you, thank you so much for such powerful information and interview. We don't have words to thank you for your kindness and for things that you brought to the table. I really appreciate it. And I hope you'll be kind enough to give us the opportunity to work with you in the future again.
Thanks for the invitation. I'm glad you find it useful. I'm always happy to share. So anytime, let me know. We'll make it happen.
Thanks again. And again, this is Wallingford Lee saying goodnight for the International Grapevine and saying to you, we hope to see you next week at the same time and the same place. Thank you for watching, and we hope that you've enjoyed this program. Good night.